What a movie! Oh, I'm so excited for you to see this film. So good. You know, I liked it while I was watching it. But the more that I've thought about it, and when I was doing my notes for this review, I've fallen even more in love with it. Oh, wow. It's so good. You should buy your tickets now. They're starting to sell, actually. It comes out technically on the 25th, but I say technically because the 70 millimeter print is going to start making the rounds on the 19th. Technically the 18th because of Thursday showings. But anyway, as many of you know, I took serious issue with the bravado of Timothee Chalamet's SAG acceptance speech last year, where he didn't acknowledge that luck is still a huge part of success, along with talent and drive. In fact, with the marketing campaign for Marty Supreme, I was concerned, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's such a smart, savvy businessman, Timothee Chalamet. Part of me wonders if that speech, no, I think that's how he actually feels, but it kind of was almost when the ad campaign for this movie started. I have complex feelings about this. I think that Marty Supreme and Timothee Chalamet share a lot of qualities. But anyway, I was concerned that this movie would be the movie version of that acceptance speech. And I would have a problem with that because I feel it would mislead people into thinking that if they want something badly enough, they'll get it, which is sadly rarely the case. You know, everybody thinks they're going to be the success story when in reality, success stories are rare. But as I watched Marty Supreme, even before it became clear to me that that's actually it's not that type of movie. It's actually a very realistic take on how hard it is to make something of yourself, which I applaud. But as I watched the movie, I thought to myself, you know, Timothee Chalamet is the GOAT, right? He's earned that bravado. I mean, damn, he's really good. I mean, I'm a fan of Timothee Chalamet, a big fan. I've enjoyed a number of his performances, and he's proven to have incredible range. He can even sing. But this is without a doubt his best performance to date. Oh my gosh. And I also think because he's a producer on the film, he's a very good producer. I fell a little out of love with Timothee Chalamet because of that acceptance speech, but I'm all back in, baby. Like, he only had a few minutes to share his thoughts there, but now he has like 2.5 hours in this movie. The only issue I have with the film, and it's sort of a similar vein, is that I'm not so sure about how people will interpret the ending. So at my press screening, we were all very excited to be seeing the movie so early, but my audience burst into, I would actually describe it as rapturous applause. And I was like, wait, are you applauding because the movie was so good? Or are you applauding because you think this is a happy ending? If people thought the ending of this movie was a happy ending, that would be frustrating to me because it would mean you don't understand who Marty Supreme really is. Because I think it's actually a very sad ending. I mean, for other people, it would be happy, but for Marty and for the people in his life, I think it's not happy. I think how you react to this movie will depend a lot on whether or not you've ever met someone like Marty Supreme. I've known a couple Martys in my life, and also I've always tried to be a good study of people. I think that's an important skill to have in life because as I said in my Bruce Springsteen movie review, one of the great lines there was it's really disappointing when people aren't who you hope that they will be. And so one of the things I've tried to do in life is to really understand who people are up front so I don't get horribly disappointed. I'm familiar with this type of person, and I loved how unflinchingly this type of person was portrayed here. And I also love that while, of course, Marty's perspective is studied, they also really study the perspective of people who are dealing with Marty. And that is fascinating. So on the one hand, you have this business tycoon played by Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. We're going to talk about the acting in this movie, but let me just tell you right here, he's actually great. At one point, he tells Marty, you will never be happy. And in the moment, it seems like the tycoon is just very upset with Marty, which he is. But I believe his statement is very true. And even in his anger with Marty, he's still trying to give him some life advice. But Marty just won't listen, as people like Marty rarely do, particularly when that advice is not something they want to hear. I think real winners in life take advice or at least consider advice even when they don't want to hear it and even when it's coming from someone who they don't like. You should always consider everything. You don't have to take it, but you should consider it. Maybe Marty does. It's a very sophisticated movie. I have to watch it at least one more time. And then, oh boy, the perspective of women who have to deal with a Marty, particularly in the 1950s when women had very few options of their own and had to rely on grabbing a man, not just for quality of life, but just downright viability. So you have two women here, and I love that they showed two different types of women. So on the one hand, you have Gwyneth Paltrow's Kay Stone, who has fame and wealth and can recover from Marty's empty promises and at some points, straight up lies. But then on the other hand, you have Odessa Azion, who has no money, absolutely nothing. And she is at Marty's mercy. That's just so sad. It's incredible. It's incredible. And in both cases, the movie is impressive, not just for its honesty, but its subtlety, because that's what life is actually like. People don't shout out the honest things, right? Those are quiet, almost hidden moments that you have to keep an eye out for. And this movie has that and portrays them that way. So you really have to pay attention and look for them. I do wonder I wonder how people will, what message people will take from this movie. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. So why Ping Pong, right? Well, there was an actual Marty Supreme, aka Marty Reisman. And the idea for this movie came from Josh Safdie's wife and producer buying him the book. And he was a hustler and big talker in real life, and a ping pong star. But considering all the absolute batshit crazy stuff that happens in this movie, in the best way, I loved how this movie escalated. It's clearly not biographical of Marty Reisman. And they've admitted that this, they just took him as inspiration. But I think going with ping pong, aka table tennis, is more about making a big bet on something that on paper seems like it can't miss. But then, as is again so often the case in life, maybe it does. Although I will say that spin, where I like to play ping pong sometimes, I'm not a champion level, but it's fun to play. It has made a little bit of a comeback, but they do use orange ping pong balls there, so I got a kick out of that. Timothee Chalamet's Marty Supreme is absolutely nuts and says some truly shocking things that not only made my audience gasp and groan, but the characters in the movie have that reaction. And I think it speaks to Chalamet's off-the-charts charisma that he is still likable. I wouldn't even say he gets away with those comments. People are like, dude. But, charisma is a very important quality in a con man, and Chalamet has it in spades. Something else that I love about this movie is its timeless quality. It takes place in the 1950s, but they use 80s music. Great touch. And the quality of the film is just top notch. The cinematography is really phenomenal. You feel like you're watching an instant classic. And really, Marty Supreme reminds me of the great character studies of that time period or around that time period. Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman and Truman Capote's Breakfast at Tiffany's. A lot of similarities to Breakfast at Tiffany's, actually. Marty Supreme is like both of these. Interestingly, only the latter went on to become a famous movie. Death of a Salesman has had a lot of famous productions and stuff like that on the stage, and I think on the small screen, but no, it's never really made like a definitive Death of a Salesman movie, which is interesting. But anyway, it's incredible. It's an incredible accomplishment that I feel Marty Supreme even belongs in the same conversation as those two. But I really do. I really do. All right, now let's talk about the Safdie brothers. So the Safdie brothers were getting a lot of attention as a directing duo, but then for some reason decided to go their separate ways. Also, Benny is trying very hard to be an actor, and it's actually going pretty good for him. He's working with Christopher Nolan, Adam Sandler. He's voicing Bowser Jr. in the upcoming Super Mario Brothers movie. And he seems almost more interested in being an actor than a director because, they both have teamed up for passion projects with big name actors, but they're having very different results. I think Dwayne Johnson, I liked his performance, so did Christopher Nolan. Maybe Christopher Nolan was watching the movie because of his pal Benny Safdie. But I think Dwayne Johnson is only starting his journey as a serious actor. While, for now at least, this is the pinnacle of Timothee Chalamet's work as an actor. He might get even better, but he's certainly the best he's ever been to date. The difference also, I think a really big difference, I suspect, is that Dwayne Johnson wants, I think like to some degree he wanted to tell Mark Kerr's story because he felt Mark Kerr deserved recognition for what he accomplished for wrestling and, mixed martial arts. But I also think Dwayne Johnson was doing a very obvious Oscar play. And I think Benny Safdie, I don't know how much his heart was in Mark Kerr's story, right? And while I'm sure Timothee Chalamet, he's certainly not made it a secret. Timothee Chalamet wants an Oscar as well. But I also feel that Timothee Chalamet is more of an artist. And I think that, and also, it's not his first rodeo. He's gotten nominations before. I think, he'll get nominations again, for sure. So, he wants it, but it's not as big a leap like it is for Dwayne Johnson, and it's not like the only thing he's thinking about. I feel that Josh Safdie and Timothee Chalamet have a real personal connection to Marty, this character, and his story. And because of that, there's a delightful authenticity to Marty Supreme, which seems very rich, despite also feeling intimate. These two movies, there's so many parallels between the two of them. And another is the budget. They both cost about the same amount. But while Marty Supreme feels like all of that money is mostly on screen, the Smashing Machine, of course, looks like it just cost $10 to $15 million. So you're like, where'd all that other money go? Dwayne Johnson? Who knows? Also, both Safdie and Chalamet are Jewish or part Jewish and were born and raised in New York City. And they capture the feel of Jewish families, neighborhoods, and businesses extremely well. Also, a great deal has been made about Chalamet really taking the time to learn to play ping pong, to play this role. For years. He's been practicing for years. And he's very good. Very, very good. He does all his own stunts, right? But this movie actually isn't really about ping pong. From the trailer, you might think it's a sports movie. It has that sports movie formula. But no, that's just, again, it's really a metaphor for just, taking it's again, going all in on something that you would think would be big, but maybe isn't going to be. And especially because this is the 1950s and we all know that ping pong never caught on here in America. But really, it's a character study. So on that note, let's talk about the performances. As I said, the role of Timothee Chalamet's career, his best performance to date, and it perfectly captures his qualities as an actor and what makes him unique from other actors. I don't know who else could have played this role. And I think it's great that Chalamet took the time and care to not just develop this role for himself, but to make it not a vanity role. He very easily could have done that. And I thought that he would based on his SAG speech last year. But no, Marty Supreme, while charming, is also very much a rogue. He's a charming rogue. And this movie doesn't shy away from why a charming rogue is so dangerous to other people. Chalamet is just electric here, and he will surely get another Oscar nomination. He probably might even win. I think he actually, in my opinion, deserves to win this year. I think he's just incredible. And it would be very early in his career. Chalamet will be 30 at the end of this month. DiCaprio didn't win until he was 41. Seeing that Chalamet has already reached this level as an actor is very exciting when you consider how much of his career he still has to go. And also that he's so ambitious, which is different from most serious actors. Most serious actors are not, that's one of the things that really makes Chalamet unique. It's very rare to see. And, he's really walking a tightrope here, but he's doing it. I'm really impressed. And as I said, I can't believe it. Kevin O'Leary, aka Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, is not just an okay actor. You think, oh, can he act? Is it just going to feel like stunt casting? He's actually a good actor. My goodness, he's very good in this movie. And his character is the exact opposite of Marty Supreme. He has everything that Marty wants, but Marty doesn't think to actually look at the man and try to think about how he was able to get what Marty wants. And O'Leary plays a businessman unflinchingly, both the good and the bad, in some cases very bad, in some cases very good. It's rare to see a business person portrayed this way in Hollywood. Usually they're saints, who come in and are like, oh, I'll make all your dreams come true. And I think this movie kind of plays off that stereotype. Or they're like super evil, right? Like Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life. But in fact, the reality is that it's somewhere in between. It's not a fixed point. And this movie captures that. I'd say his Shark Tank persona perhaps serves him well here, But he so becomes this character that I actually didn't think about him on Shark Tank. I actually thought of him as an actor here, which is amazing. All right, so how about the ladies? Never been a big Gwyneth Paltrow fan. She's always seemed to me like one of those Nepo babies that maybe didn't deserve it, right? Nepo babies talk about having to prove their worth. And, I know she has an Oscar, but for me, I don't know. She's fine. I don't dislike Gwyneth Paltrow, but I've never been particularly impressed. Until now, I was surprised at how much I liked her here. Her role is also very honest and not at all a vanity role. And I always appreciate that vulnerability, that honesty. And while she's playing someone who's beautiful and rich, that doesn't mean her life is great. In fact, far from it. But how sympathetic is that? And I think Paltrow manages to make it sympathetic, but without asking for your sympathy. She knows she's better off than most, but that doesn't mean her life is perfect. I really like that she's not some cougar here either, and that her relationship with Marty is very complex, and that she's a match for Marty. She, as being older and having a lot of life experience, she can kind of see Marty coming, but also not, which is also interesting. Again, I think women will have a very different reaction to this movie than guys, which I find really interesting. I personally think Paltrow is so good here that she would be worthy of a Best Supporting Actress nomination. I want Ariana to win it, but I think Paltrow deserves the nomination. But it's a crowded field this year, and A24 hasn't really been pushing her, which is a shame. Also, for all her talk about working with an intimacy coordinator, her romantic scenes, let's say, with Timothee Chalamet are pretty tame. As for, I don't know what they filmed, but what made it into the final cut is pretty tame. As for Odessa Azion, she made a big impression on me in the trailers alone. I think she has a great look. I think she really pops on screen. But also, she portrays so much emotion with just a look. Like, you can tell she's trapped in her feelings for Marty. And I think that all women have either had this happen to themselves or seen it happen to a close friend. And in both cases, it's really tough. And I think Azion does a great job here. Really, really good. And holds her own. Her character isn't like some sad sack. She's just dealing with the cards that she's been dealt, both that life have dealt her and that she's dealt herself. Speaking of women in the film, while their roles are extremely small, I did love seeing both Fran Drescher and Santa Bernhard here. They are both excellent as well. I really thought they were well used. And I know a lot of you are curious about how Tyler, the Creator, does. And while his role is also small, he's fantastic. He does a great job. Josh Safdie, I think, is a great director because he really treats all of his actors really well. And he makes everybody look good, which is a great quality in a director. On that note, real life table tennis champion Koto Kawaguchi plays Marty's Japanese opponent. And, he never really says anything, which was a good idea to help him ease him into acting. But he has to convey a lot with looks sometimes. There's a language barrier. That's how they get around the talking. But, he was very good. I would have thought he was an actual actor, to be honest with you. But I guess not everybody can learn ping pong like Timothée Chalamet. Although I wonder if Hungarian actor Geza Rohrig learned ping pong. He plays another ping pong player who's friends with Marty, and he really pops as well. I thought he was great. And he has one scene that's incredible. I was very impressed here as well. So yeah. Amazing movie. I feel it's one battle after another's biggest competition this awards season. Although, I'm very curious to see how people react to it, because if you really loved Timothée Chalamet's speech and you didn't think there was anything wrong with it, you're like, you don't need luck, it's all about drive. Well, then you might not like this movie. I'm very curious, again, to see how people react to it. It's extremely sophisticated, and I just think it's an instant classic. I can't recommend it enough, and I can't wait to see it again. That young talent in Hollywood, in front of and behind the camera, is delivering this kind of work is, this with this kind of complexity and, realness, is really encouraging for both audiences and the industry. It's just really amazing. I'm just blown away. And that's my review of Marty Supreme, hitting theaters and wide release on Christmas Day. But as I said, it will become available in some theaters in 70 millimeter starting on the 19th, or technically the 18th, with afternoon showtimes. But that's, of course, when Avatar comes out, and it's a real shame that Marty Supreme won't get to play on any premium screens, because I think it would have been a real treat in IMAX and or Dolby, because it's just, again, as I said, a beautiful film. It's 2.5 hours. It deserves to be seen in premium formats, but you're not going to be able to, which again, we need more premium screens. I hope you should still see it in theaters. Try and see it in a really great theater where you would see a great movie. You're going to have a great time. I'm excited for you. All right, share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.